April 14th, 2022. It's Thursday evening in Essex, Maryland, a former steel town just outside of Baltimore.
Once upon a time, Essex was a destination that people worked really hard to get to. But once the steel mill shut down, it kind of took the legs out of Essex.
Essex is growing in crime. There's a general fear with everyone that crime could hit your door.
Still, when 33-year-old Bradina Henson doesn't come to pick up her son from her brother's house, the two aren't immediately concerned.
Your mom not picking you up?
Bradina had actually made an agreement with her brother Carl to look after her son Trenton for a couple of days.
Easter was just days away, and she was planning to have a big Easter celebration.
She was preparing to have family and friends coming over.
Bradina was supposed to pick up her son on Wednesday, and she did not show.
And by Thursday, worry had started to set in.
She was a great mother. Her son was her world. So for her to not show up when she said she would, for her to not answer the phone, was very unusual.
So as any family that's concerned would, they went to her home.
But when Carl shows up with Bradina's 13-year-old son, Trenton, they immediately discover something unusual.
Check the door.
The door is shut but not latched. That was already a red flag.
This was a neighborhood where people still close and lock their homes at night.
Mom!
Concerned, the two head inside.
Mom, you here?
They called for her and heard no response.
But upstairs,
Brandy?
they make a horrifying discovery.
They find Bradina lying face up on the bed.
Mom! Come on, come on, come on.
Carl goes over to her, trying to wake her, but she's motionless. He tells Trenton, call 911.
Born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, Bradina preferred her nickname.
She was known to her loved ones as Brandy.
When her biological parents couldn't raise her, relatives took her in as their own.
Bradina's aunt helped raise her.
She was cared for and loved.
Though it could be hard to crack Brandy's tough exterior, those who did immediately saw her tremendous potential.
People always just talked about her attitude. Ooh, that girl got an attitude on her. And I said, no, that's just her defense mechanism. Take an opportunity. If you sit down and you talk with her, you'll find out that she absolutely is just, the best young person ever.
And when Brandy truly cared for someone, she gave them her whole heart.
If you were special to her, you got everything that came with her. You got her love, you got her ferocity.
She would give you the shirt off her back.
Loving on people, that's just who Brandy was.
So it was no wonder that this hardworking, caring young woman chose a career in nursing.
Bradina was a nursing trainer at the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Baltimore City. And what Kennedy Krieger is known for is for helping children and adults with learning and emotional disabilities. To serve this population, you have to have a heart for people.
But Brandy's driving force was her son, Trenton.
She said over and over, Trenton is my world.
You like your food?
She was absolutely proud of him. And whenever she talked about him to me, she beamed.
She would do anything for him. They shared a special relationship.
Though Brandy and Trenton's father separated when he was a baby, the two remained on good terms.
I actually just spoke to your dad. He'll be here soon to pick you up.
Okay, let me go get my stuff.
Bradina and Darnell had a good co-parenting relationship.
Brandy also had someone special to share her life with.
Tavon Howard was Bradina's longtime boyfriend. They had been dating about a decade. He was an aspiring rapper.
This was someone that she counted on, someone that she confided in.
Hey,
Why are you looking so sad?
I had a rough day at work.
And Bradina stood by him through a lot of rough times. Tavon appreciated having a support system like that.
The two seemed like a couple meant to last.
They were each other's person for a long time.
And they were talking about getting married.
But now, their bright future may never come to pass.
Once Bradina's son and Carl stumble upon Bradina in her bed, lying unconscious. They call the authorities.
Baltimore County 911.
Yeah, I'm not immediately.
There was blood spatter everywhere, across the bed, along the walls.
And Trenton tells the operator his mom is unresponsive.
Is she breathing? Get on, get some help out there for you.
When the operator asks Trenton if someone can perform CPR in the meantime, he passes the phone to his uncle.
The dispatcher immediately begins instructing him to resuscitate Bradina.
But Carl soon realizes there may be no point.
When he got closer and he felt her, Bradina was cold.
I think she's doing.
You think she's beyond help?
Yes.
They were too late. Trenton had lost his mother.
"33-year-old Brandy Henson had built a beautiful life in Essex, Maryland, with her son Trenton and her longtime boyfriend, Tavon Howard.
They were a family, if you will. He was in her son's life.
But now, after her brother has told the 911 operator he believes his sister is dead,
I think she's doing.
medics have arrived on the scene.
They find Bradina lying on the bed, her legs hanging over, face up.
They came to see if they could revive her, but they couldn't.
While waiting for detectives to arrive, responding officers begin surveying the evidence.
Bradina was discovered face up on her bed, which indicates whoever her attacker was. She was face to face with them.
After examining the victim a little more closely, police quickly identify how she died.
The cause of death was gunshot wounds.
Oh, that's one.
Yeah.
And then the neck.
They found 3 gunshot wounds, one in her chest, one in her neck, and one in her right cheek.
Is that one in the face? That's pretty.
Yeah.
There was blood spatter everywhere.
And detectives found 45 caliber casings around the room.
We have one round here, this casing here,
Uh-huh.
right? And then 2 of them.
A discovery under the victim's pillow is also telling.
They recovered her handgun that she legally owned and was registered to her. It was not fired, it was unused.
So either she couldn't get to the gun, or whoever was there with her who attacked her diffused the situation enough that she didn't feel like having the gun was an urgent situation.
And while police have no idea why Brandy was killed, they quickly rule out one motive.
We knew it wasn't a robbery or a burglary.
There was within eyesight of her body many valuable materials such as smartwatch, phone, wallet full of money, the laptop.
Moving downstairs, officers find groceries and serving trays on the kitchen counter.
It appeared Bradina was preparing to cook.
And while the front door was open when police arrived, it remains intact.
The front door had no signs of forced entry.
But the back door raises eyebrows.
It was barricaded.
There was a piece of wood wedged under the door handle and the floor.
And when they looked on the outside, they noticed a footprint on the door.
As if it had been attempted to be kicked in.
The barricaded door, along with the gun under the victim's pillow, suggests this attack may not have been entirely unexpected.
Whatever happened to Bradina Henson, this was personal.
Outside, officers join Brandy's brother and her son, who were sitting in his uncle's car, for questioning.
Establishing a timeline was most important, so we need to talk to family about who talked to her last.
So tell me about why you came today to check on her. Have you not heard from her?
Trenton was staying with his Uncle Carl.
Trenton had talked to his mom on Tuesday night and finalized plans to come back home the next day.
But Bradina didn't show up to pick Trenton up.
And she wasn't answering her phone.
Is it strange?
They knew then something may have been wrong. It was enough for Carl to say, Trenton, let's go see about your mom.
Brandy's son further explains that when they got to the home, they had immediate cause for concern.
Check the door.
The door was shut, but unlocked.
This was troubling in the fact that Bradina always closed and locked the door.
So her son and brother entered the home.
You walked in, then you went up right upstairs, and you called out a little bit?
I walked there, we called out.
But the young boy never anticipated the horrific scene he and his uncle would find upstairs.
His life changed forever.
I can't imagine what he went through, finding your mother like that in the condition that she was in.
When police asked Carl and Trenton if there was anyone who might have wanted to harm Brandy, her brother draws a blank.
Carl could not think of anybody.
But Brandy's son immediately mentions a possible suspect.
Her ex-boyfriend? Okay.
They had, in fact, recently broken up.
But he had been coming around, even though his mother had asked him not to. Tavon just was not taking no for an answer.
The 13-year-old son of murder victim Bradina Henson has just told Baltimore police that his mother recently broke up with her boyfriend, Tavon Howard. But Trenton claims since the breakup, Tavon refused to leave his mother alone.
Despite them being broken up in the last few weeks, he had been coming around.
He was not going to accept that this was over.
And her son details a highly disturbing incident that occurred just weeks before his mother's killing.
Tavon had entered the home in a fit of rage and used a knife to slice their couch open, and also took a gun and shot bullet holes into her bed.
You know if she called the police?
But before they can get any further, a hysterical woman arrives on the scene.
Let me talk to somebody.
Do you want to talk to a police officer? Okay, I'll talk to you. Come over here.
The woman identifies herself as Dana Dillon and calls Bradina her daughter.
So you're her mother. This is your daughter?
The officer is patient as Dana struggles to get her words out.
She had some problems with God.
Okay. Who is the guy? Take a deep breath. Yeah, sure. Take a deep breath.
Tavon Howard.
Like Bradina's son, she tells police Tavon and his mom had broken up, and Tavon had been causing some problems.
Upon hearing this name for a second time, police believe Tavon is their prime suspect.
You want to know what the best thing you can do for her right now is? And I mean this honestly. If you want us to find out what happened to get to the bottom of it, I need you to go talk to the detective.
Her family is taken to police headquarters for questioning.
In the meantime, some officers remain behind to canvass the neighborhood.
So, unfortunately, the neighbor next door passed away. I was wondering if you guys heard anything suspicious for the past 2 days.
Who passed away?
The neighbor is stunned because she had just crossed paths with Brandy on Tuesday night.
Around what time?
I think around 8 p.m. She was coming. She had to go streets. And I was asking if she needed help. And she said no.
Bradina said, I got it, I'm good. She was looking to prepare Easter dinner.
After that, The neighbor doesn't think Brandy ever left the house again.
The neighbor had noticed that Brandy's car hadn't moved since she saw her.
But she reveals that in the early hours of Wednesday morning, a loud bang coming from Brandy's home woke her.
You know what time that was?
In the middle of the night.
Okay.
Maybe around 2
But when she got up to investigate, she didn't see anyone and she didn't hear anything else. So she left it alone and she went back to bed.
Officers suspect this was when Brandy's assailant attacked her.
The neighbor hearing the bang late at night was very important to set the timeline.
With the canvas complete, officers head to the building management office where they request surveillance footage.
Management confirms to the police officers that they do have surveillance cameras.
In fact, there was a camera pointed right at Bradina's apartment.
But there's something else the building manager thinks police need to know about Brandy and her apartment.
There was a lot of calls that came in for maintenance about damage to the property.
And this isn't the first time someone broke into the home.
She revealed that there was an incident.
Her back door was kicked in and then she came to the office to put in a service request.
When the manager asked Brandy if she knew who might be responsible, she claimed she didn't.
But she could tell Bradina wasn't being entirely honest.
After pressing further, Brandy finally came clean.
She finally admitted it was her ex-boyfriend. Bradina was in fear for her life.
Brandy Henson's apartment building manager has just informed police that her ex-boyfriend had broken into her apartment weeks before her murder.
He had kicked in the back door.
Because of him, the back door was barricaded.
And while she didn't tell the manager her ex's name, Brandy soon made it clear how terrified she was of him.
She had told her that she called the police to get help, but government help may have been a little bit more consequential than she wanted, and she tried to handle it all on her own.
So she decided to ask the leasing company to be let out of her lease early. She did not want to live there where he had access to her.
At the station, a detective meets with Brandy's son, Trenton, now joined by his father, Darnell Short.
I'm Detective Needham. I'm going to talk to you for, I think, a few minutes and get you guys on your way, all right?
At the request of the detective, Brandy's son fills him in on what he's already told police.
Last time I actually talked to her was Tuesday.
He also takes this opportunity to see what Trenton's father might know.
Did she express anything to you about anything that's going on or concerned about anything?
He says they really kept it to being about Trenton anytime they interacted.
But police need to be certain Darnell had nothing to do with Brandy's murder.
They pressed him just to see if he has any jealousy, if he has any envy, if he still wants to be with Brandy.
Are you aware of any romantic involvement she has, boyfriends or ex-boyfriends? Or?
No, I kept.
Is that your thing?
Yeah, no, I just kept her separate. You get what I'm saying?
He doesn't know anything about her personal life.
Even though their relationship didn't work out, he was fine with that. They had both moved on.
I got you. That's a good thing.
At the same time, another detective meets with Dana Dillon, the woman who'd raised Brandy.
She is beyond devastated and distraught.
Her family lost someone they loved.
Once again, Dana insists Tavon is to blame.
He kept my baby. He did. I know he did.
Dana explains that while Brandy was initially very much in love with him, the family always knew Tavon was trouble.
This was a man that was in and out of prison constantly.
He was a drug dealer, had access to firearms.
He had violent tendencies. His temper was horrible.
This boy is crazy. This boy is crazy.
They had a very tumultuous relationship.
Has he ever physically assaulted her before this?
Yeah.
But Brandy's aunt explains that over their 10-year relationship, Brandy forgave Tavon again and again.
Every single time he got out of prison, Bradina was right there to help him get back on track.
She took care of his medical appointments. She took care of his financial needs. She gave him a place to live. Bradina was a helper, and she wanted to maybe rescue him.
But her aunt says finally, a few months earlier, Brandy decided enough was enough.
She finally put her foot down and said no, that she was not going to get back with him, and that she did not want to be with him.
Like Brandy's son, Dana recalls the chilling moment when Tavon destroyed Brandy's couch.
Ever since the tearing up the furniture and shooting bullets, I've been walking around and I haven't swim.
But that was far from the only way Tavon tormented Brandy in the weeks leading up to the murder.
Everywhere Brandy went, Tavon would show.
She was a threat to her, because she recently told me he spit on her.
This was a man that was trying to prey upon her and instill fear.
She had told people that if she wound up dead, he was likely to be the person that did it.
And Dana says Tavon's unhinged behavior pushed Brandy to take precautions she normally wouldn't.
She had a gun.
Okay.
So I never seen it, but she told me that she had one.
She was in so much fear due to his continued violence against her that she herself applied for a handgun, a 9mm, and she kept it under her pillow as a means of protection.
Bradina is thinking maybe she was going to take out a restraining order on Tavon.
Before ending the interview, the detective asks Dana if there's anyone else who might want to hurt Brandy.
There's nobody else that she was having any issue with. This boy did this.
Next, investigators confirm Tavon's long criminal record.
He had a very long rap sheet of drug-related crimes, but also some violence.
And some of those charges included weapons and violent assault of other people.
And Tavon had been charged with murder previously.
But those charges were dropped.
But since getting out of jail a year ago, it looks like Tavon has kept his record clean, except for one small blemish.
Investigators saw a traffic stop involving a white vehicle.
The white SUV was actually registered to somebody else and had very distinctive damage to the front of the car. They made a note, but they sent him on his way with a ticket.
But this seemingly innocent encounter will soon cost Tavon when detectives review the surveillance footage from Brandy's building.
They see a white SUV with very distinct damage to the front of the car pull up to Bradina's home at around 1:30 a.m. the night that she was murdered.
Reviewing surveillance footage from Brandy Henson's building in the hours leading up to her murder, Essex detectives see an SUV matching one her ex-boyfriend, Tavon Howard, is known to drive.
This white SUV has significant damage to its front bumper.
While they are all but certain the driver who gets out and walks up to Brandy's door is Tavon, they can't confirm it.
The footage was a bit grainy, so they could not make out a clear face.
Investigators also note a second person inside the vehicle.
Once this figure that they believe is Tavon leaves the car, they see the passenger open the door, toss a bottle out, and close the door back.
About an hour after the driver entered Brandy's residence, they see him return to the car.
This time, this person is wearing a ski mask.
They see him speed off.
Immediately, investigators put out a bolo for the vehicle Tavon is suspected to be driving.
They knew the SUV's license plate.
It doesn't take long for Baltimore City Police to spot the SUV.
Officers initiate the traffic stop, but Tavon takes off, leading officers on a chase.
Police continue their pursuit and call in a helicopter to follow him.
Interstate Soapy going westbound O'Donnell. Westbound O'Donnell crossing Ponca. So you're gonna get orders.
He was driving as fast and as reckless as he wanted to.
At a turn, the vehicle finally slows.
The driver actually stops the vehicle, and his passenger jumps out.
Officers quickly chase the second man down and place him under arrest.
They identify him as a 20-year-old named Jamal.
Meanwhile, the SUV's wild flight continues.
Just jumped over the left-hand turn lane at Gus Ryan, and he's making a left southbound.
Ultimately, he hit a vehicle that just happened to be pulling out.
When the perpetrator runs from the vehicle, there's no longer any doubt it's Tavon Howard.
He was ultimately detained by Baltimore City Police.
Hey, brother.
Claiming injuries, Tavon is transported to a nearby hospital. Back at the station, police meet with Tavon's passenger, Jamal Flynn, who claims to have no idea why he's there.
He tells police they got in the car to get some lunch.
I'm just going to McDonald's.
Yeah.
He had no idea that Tavon was going to take off like that.
When asked how he knows Tavon, Jamal says they've known each other most of their lives.
And the two, in fact, sell drugs together.
Nonetheless, Jamal claims he's completely in the dark about Tavon's personal life.
We'll talk about times, bro.
And while he does admit Tavon gave him a ride home Tuesday night, he denies ever leaving Baltimore City for the suburbs.
When do you guys go out to Essex?
I didn't go out to Essex.
That's when the investigator pulls out Brandy's photo.
Ever seen anybody talking about her? Picture with her?
I didn't get there in my life.
Detectives continue to press him.
Unfortunately, Brandy got murdered the other night.
What?
Yep. That's why I'm in here talking to you.
Even after being shown pictures of Brandy's building, Jamal continues to claim his innocence.
He tells police that he was not there the night of the murder.
So the detective confronts him with the evidence.
It's on video, and I'm not trying to screw you. You're screwing yourself. Just be honest.
Under pressure, Jamal changes his story.
He tells investigators, okay, you're right, I was with Tavon in the car.
I went to sleep in the car. I woke up, I didn't know where I was. I had peed. I peed in the bottle. I tried it out the door. And then I went back to sleep, bro.
But Jamal now admits that a little while later, Tavon woke him up.
He was banging on the window, asking him to open the door.
It's me, Anderson.
What kind of mask?
Scared.
He also noticed Tavon has a gun in his pocket.
Did you assume something bad happened then?
Yeah.
And Jamal says he only grew more anxious as Tavon drove out of the complex.
Was he driving slow at first, fast?
But Jamal says he avoided asking any questions.
He said it wasn't his business.
After listening to Jamal's story, the detective levels with him one last time.
Listen, I'm gonna ask you this one time only. He tell you what he was going there to do?
No, sir. No. Never told me what he was going to do.
Luckily for Jamal, the detective believes him.
He ultimately was released without being charged.
When detectives scour Tavon's vehicle, the evidence against him continues to mount.
They found a .45 caliber pistol with ammunition, the same .45 caliber ammunition that was found at Brandy's home.
Investigators also find a ski mask.
And the case against Tavon is about to become airtight.
Investigators secure warrants for Tavon's cell phone records.
At approximately the same time of the video of him pulling up, his phone connected to Berdina's Wi-Fi.
It really is such a nail in his coffin.
Essex detectives investigating the murder of Brandy Henson have just confirmed that her ex-boyfriend, Tavon Howard, was in her apartment moments before she was murdered.
Tavon's phone synced to Brandy's Wi-Fi right at the time she was murdered, placing Tavon at the scene of the crime.
Now cleared at the hospital, Tavon is transferred to the police station for questioning.
You wearing a mask because you're sick or because you don't want to get sick?
I'm wearing a mask because they told me to put the mask on when you come in the building.
Oh, really? I don't know. Whatever works.
The detective begins the interview by asking Tavon if he knows why he's there.
Man, I want to have a couple ideas.
He said he already knew that Berdina was dead because her son had told him.
And Tavon believes that Brandy's family does not like him and are saying that due to his criminal history, he's responsible for her murder.
I would even expect if they came in here and told you a whole bunch of lies.
But he insists he had nothing to do with her murder.
Tavon admits that he and Berdina had issues, but he maintains he would never hurt her.
Do you think that she would eventually come around and you guys got back together?
I think that we probably definitely would have got back together.
And although he does admit to being in the area of Brandy's home the night of the crime, he claims he never saw her.
He said he was in fact there to just sell drugs.
I had a weed sale and a crack sale.
As for why Tavon fled from police, he's also ready with an answer.
I had drugs in there, which is why I ran.
Okay.
But when asked who might have been the one to harm Brandy, Tavon makes an outrageous claim.
One day, where we took each other from, and I find out that she was having sex for money.
Tavon is claiming the other men were possibly to blame.
Finally, police confront Tavon with the evidence against him.
See those two things?
Cameras.
Cameras.
Okay.
You're gonna have a hard time getting anybody to believe what you're saying now, because I'm gonna show these videos. I'm gonna show the gun that I take out of your car and how it matches the bullets that I took out of her. I'm gonna show your fingerprints and DNA on it.
But Tavon refuses to admit any wrongdoing.
I ain't do nothing to you.
Say it again?
Said I didn't do nothing to Berdina.
He could have told the truth, and he decided not to.
But even without a confession, investigators still have more than enough to move forward with the case against Tavon.
Unfortunately, you could get charged with first-degree murder, okay?
When Tavon's trial opens in June of 2023, Brandy's family is there to support her.
They were there the whole case, and they wanted to see the story to a conclusion.
To prosecutors, Tavon's motive was simple.
He took her life for no other reason than she didn't want him. And he could not deal with that.
He figured that if I can't have you, no one else can. So he executed her.
Prosecutors believe that on the night of the murder, Tavon made one last-ditch effort to change Bradina's mind.
Bradina had broken up with him several times, and when this happened, they were broken up. But she opened the door for him anyway.
Once he entered the home, obviously Bradina is at the mercy of a very angry and violent person, and things took a very dark turn.
Somehow they ended up in Brandy's bedroom.
Possibly Bradina tried to get to her bedroom because she knew that gun was under her pillow. And this could be a case where she tried to defend herself.
But Brandy never got the chance.
That's where he pulled out the pistol and shot her at least 3 times.
The case against Tavon is strong.
There was videos, there was the high-speed car chase, there was the cell phone data.
Through it all, Tavon sticks to his original story.
Tavon said he was innocent.
But the jury sees right through him.
Mr. Howard is found guilty of first-degree murder.
When the judge sentences him to life in prison, Brandy's family is grateful.
They were crying. All the family members were hugging.
A cold-blooded killer is behind bars for the rest of his life where he belongs.
I'm glad that there was some justice done in this case.
Although there were many victims in this case, Brandy's young son may be the one who suffered the most.
He will forever have that memory of his mother discovering her dead inside their home. The trauma that's associated with going through a murder trial and then having to grow up without his mother.
A wonderful woman who will never be forgotten.
Bradina really cared about her community, and people really cared about her. There was Instagram posts at the time, thousands of people commenting about how kind she was. She was a good person.
And Tavon took advantage of her kindness.
What's sad is that Bradina knew that this was a bad relationship, but ultimately she gave him a second chance. She opened the door for him the day of the murder. That was her biggest mistake.
In cases of domestic violence, it's important to be decisive and move quickly.
You really have to think about yourself first. If you need help or you need resources, it's out there for you.
You don't want to be the next Bradina, and unfortunately it happens way too often.
There are places in America that seem ordinary in daylight. Places where people drive to work, stop for gas, buy groceries, and hurry home before dark. But some places acquire another identity over time. They become associated with disappearances, unanswered questions, and names that families refuse to forget. Near League City, Texas, between Houston and Galveston, one stretch of land became known by a name that sounded almost impossible: the Texas Killing Fields. The name was not created because investigators immediately knew that a single killer was responsible. It emerged from something more disturbing. Over the years, bodies and remains were discovered in isolated areas along the Interstate 45 corridor, while young women and girls disappeared from nearby communities. The landscape offered dense vegetation, open fields, drainage areas, and remote patches of land where a body could remain hidden for months or even years. For investigators, every discovery raised the same terrifying possibility. Someone had learned how to use the landscape as a graveyard. The most closely connected group of cases involves 4 women whose remains were discovered near Calder Road between 1984 and 1991. Their names were Heidi Fye, Laura Miller, Audrey Cook, and Donna Prudhomme. Their lives were different. Their ages were different. Their circumstances were different. Yet each woman ultimately became part of the same haunting geography. For decades, investigators could not prove that one person had killed all 4. That distinction matters. The Texas killing fields is often described as though it were the work of one unidentified serial killer, but the evidence has never established that conclusion. What is certain is that 4 women were found dead in the same general area, and that several of their cases remained unsolved for decades. The story begins with Heidi Fye. Heidi was 25 years old, a young woman living in the League City area. In 1983, she disappeared. At first, there was no dramatic crime scene, no witness who could explain exactly what had happened, and no body that could immediately tell investigators where to begin. She simply vanished from the lives of the people who knew her. Her disappearance became another missing person case in a region where disappearances would later become tragically familiar. Her family had no final goodbye. There was no grave to visit. There was only uncertainty, and uncertainty can become its own kind of suffering. Every passing day creates 2 possibilities for a family: the hope that the missing person might still be alive, and the fear that the worst has already happened. Months passed. Then, in April 1984, something extraordinary happened. A dog wandered back toward a residential area, carrying what appeared to be human bone. The discovery led authorities toward an area near Calder Road. Investigators searched the surrounding land and found additional remains. The remains belonged to Heidi Fye. The discovery changed her case forever. She was no longer simply a missing woman. She was a homicide victim whose body had been abandoned in a remote area. But finding Heidi did not reveal who killed her. Instead, it created another question. Why had she been brought to this particular place? At the time, there was no way to know that her remains would become the first known piece of a much larger and darker puzzle. Only months later, another young woman disappeared. Her name was Laura Miller. Laura was 16 years old, a teenager whose family had recently moved to the League City area. She was still at an age when ordinary decisions could seem completely harmless. On September 10, 1984, Laura went to a nearby convenience store. Her family did not yet have a telephone at their new home, so she used the store's public phone. That detail would become painfully important. Laura was expected to return home. Instead, she disappeared. There was no warning that this ordinary trip would become the final known chapter of her life. She did not leave behind a message explaining where she was going. She did not return home that night. Her family began searching, hoping that she had simply gone somewhere without telling them. But Laura was gone. The investigation eventually led authorities back toward the same remote landscape where Heidi Fye had been found. Yet Laura's remains would not be discovered immediately. Months turned into a year. Then another. On February 2, 1986, 2 teenagers riding bicycles near Calder Road noticed something unusual. Their discovery brought investigators back into the area. Searchers found the remains of 2 women lying relatively close to each other. One set of remains was eventually identified as Laura Miller. She had been missing since 1984. The second woman was not identified. For investigators, the discovery was deeply unsettling. 2 women had now been found in the same general area. One was a teenager who had disappeared after using a public telephone. The other was an unidentified woman whose name, family, and history were unknown. The unidentified victim became known as Jane Doe, yet investigators did not know who she was. They could not tell her family that she had been found because they did not know which family was looking for her. And for decades, that woman would remain unidentified. The landscape itself became part of the mystery. Calder Road was not a crowded city street. The surrounding area included isolated land and thick vegetation, conditions that could conceal a body from casual view. Someone familiar with the area could potentially enter and leave without attracting much attention. For a killer, that isolation could provide time. For investigators, it created obstacles. Weather could damage evidence. Vegetation could cover remains. Animals could disturb a scene. And every month that passed made the possibility of recovering useful evidence more difficult. Still, the cases refused to disappear. The unidentified woman eventually received a name decades later. But in 1986, investigators had no such answer. They had only remains and questions. 5 years after Laura Miller was found, another body appeared. In September 1991, People riding horses in the Calder Road area discovered the remains of another woman. Once again, the location was painfully familiar. The body was found in the same general area that had already been associated with Heidi Fye, Laura Miller, and the unidentified woman. 4 women had now been found near the same isolated stretch of land over a period of several years. The pattern was impossible to ignore, yet the identity of the 4th victim remained unknown. Investigators had to begin again with a body, a location, and a life that had been interrupted. They needed to determine who she was before they could reconstruct what had happened to her. Eventually, the woman was identified as Donna Gonsalon Prudhomme. 4 names now belonged to the 4 victims: Heidi Fye, Laura Miller, Audrey Cook, and Donna Prudhomme. But knowing their names did not solve their murders. It only made the tragedy more personal. For the families, each identification brought a terrible form of closure. They finally knew what happened to a missing loved one, but identification also created a new demand for justice. If their daughter, sister, mother, or friend had been found, then someone had to explain why she had died. The Texas killing fields had become more than a patch of land. It had become a question. Were these 4 women victims of one predator? Were several killers operating independently? Did some of the disappearances along Interstate 45 have nothing to do with Calder Road at all? For decades, investigators would struggle with those questions. And while the public often imagined a single monster hiding somewhere in Texas, the truth was more complicated. The evidence did not provide a simple story. It provided fragments, missing persons reports, remote discoveries, unidentified remains, families waiting for answers, and a landscape that seemed to hold secrets beneath the soil. The most disturbing part was that the investigation was only beginning. At the time, nobody could know how many years would pass before science could restore names to the unidentified dead. Nobody could know that advances in DNA technology would eventually reopen questions that seemed frozen in the past. And nobody could know that decades later, investigators would still be examining the people, places, and relationships surrounding Calder Road. For the families of the victims, time did not erase the crime. It only made the silence longer. And somewhere between Houston and Galveston, the fields remained, waiting. The discovery of Laura Miller's remains in 1986 changed the Calder Road investigation. Until then, Heidi Fye's death could have been treated as a terrible but isolated homicide. Laura's disappearance and discovery of her body in the same general area created a pattern. Then there was the unidentified woman found beside Laura. 3 victims had now been connected by geography, even though investigators still lacked the evidence needed to connect them by a killer. For Laura's family, the discovery brought a devastating answer to a question that had haunted them for more than a year. Their daughter was dead, but the answer was incomplete. They still did not know who had taken her, what had happened after she left the convenience store, or why her body had been abandoned in the fields. Laura had been 16 years old. She was young enough that the ordinary details of her final day became unbearable in retrospect. She had gone to a nearby store because her family's new home did not yet have a telephone. She used a public phone, apparently expecting to return afterward. Nothing about that routine suggested that she was walking into danger. Then she disappeared. The circumstances surrounding that disappearance became one of the most important mysteries in the case. Investigators had to reconstruct a short period of time using memories, statements, and whatever physical evidence remained. The problem was that the most important witness was gone. Laura could not explain whom she had met, whether someone had approached her, or how she had ended up miles away from the ordinary places of her life. The area around Calder Road offered few answers. It was isolated enough to conceal a person and a vehicle, yet close enough to populated communities that a stranger could have traveled through without attracting attention. In the early 1980s, there were no widespread surveillance cameras tracking every road. There were no smartphones recording locations. There was no instant digital trail showing where a person had been during the final minutes of her life. Every investigation depended on human memory and physical evidence. And physical evidence was vulnerable. Weather could damage evidence. Vegetation could cover remains. Animals could move bones. Soil could bury objects. A scene that looked empty one day might reveal something years later. This was the environment investigators were confronting. Then there was the second woman. When her remains were discovered near Laura's, investigators knew that they were dealing with someone whose identity was unknown. She became a Jane Doe, a temporary name used when a person's real identity cannot immediately be established. Behind that label was a human tragedy. Somewhere, a family could have been wondering where their daughter had gone. Yet investigators had no name to release, no confirmed missing person report, and no immediate way to connect the remains to a family. The woman would eventually be known as Audrey Lee Cook, but that breakthrough was decades away. In the meantime, the cases remained open. The discovery of multiple victims in the same area naturally raised the possibility of a serial killer. The public could easily imagine a single predator using the fields as a dumping ground. That theory became part of mythology surrounding the Texas killing fields. But investigators had to work with evidence, not mythology. The fact that bodies were found in one area did not automatically prove that the same person had killed every victim. Different crimes can occur in the same isolated location. A killer can also use a place that another criminal has used before. Geography can suggest a connection, but it cannot establish one by itself. That distinction will remain important for decades. Still, the location was troubling. Calder Road was surrounded by land where a person could disappear from view. The broader region contained oil fields, marshes, wooded areas, and stretches of undeveloped property. Interstate 45 provided a major transportation route nearby, connecting communities between Houston and Galveston. Someone traveling through the corridor could reach isolated areas without necessarily being noticed. This combination of accessibility and isolation made the region frightening. It also meant that investigators had to consider a much larger area than one field. Over the years, other women and girls disappeared along the I-45 corridor. Some were later found alive. Others were found dead. Some cases remained unresolved. The public began to connect them under the name Texas Killing Fields, even though authorities could not establish that every disappearance belonged to one conspiracy or one killer. The name grew because the unanswered cases grew. For the families, there was another terrifying reality. A missing person case can last for years without producing a body. Families are suspended between hope and grief, unable to accept that the person is gone. Finding remains ends at uncertainty, but replaces it with another kind of pain. Laura Miller's family learned this firsthand. Her father, Tim Miller, would later become one of the most persistent advocates for missing people in Texas. The loss of his daughter changed the direction of his life. He became involved in searches for other missing people and eventually helped establish Texas EquiSearch. But during the early years, he was simply a father looking for his daughter. That distinction matters. The Texas killing fields would later become a national story. Yet before the cameras and headlines, families were walking into police stations, making telephone calls, studying photographs, and waiting for news. The victims were not symbols. They were people. Heidi Fye had a life before her disappearance. Laura Miller had a family and plans for the future. Audrey Cook had worked and maintained relationships. Donna Prudhomme had people who cared about her. The fields came. That is why the investigation cannot be understood simply as a story about a mysterious location. The location was where the stories ended, not where they began. Investigators needed to learn where each victim had been before she vanished. They needed to identify people who had encountered them. They needed to examine vehicles, workplaces, relationships, habits, and possible sightings. They needed to determine whether the victims had crossed paths with one another or with the same unknown person. The challenge was that the crimes had occurred years apart. A witness who remembered something clearly in 1984 might remember it differently years later. Someone who seemed unimportant during the first investigation might become significant after another body was found. Someone could move away, change jobs, disappear from the area, or die before investigators had a chance to question them. The passage of time became an enemy. Yet time also produced technology investigators did not have in the 1980s. DNA analysis would eventually transform the investigation of unidentified remains. Genetic genealogy would allow investigators to compare unknown DNA with distant relatives and build family trees. Digital databases could compare missing persons across jurisdictions. Old evidence could be tested again using techniques that did not exist when the original investigations began. But technology alone could not solve every mystery. The first task was knowing what evidence remained. Old case files had to be reviewed. Evidence had to be located and preserved. Investigators had to separate facts from rumors. They had to revisit interviews and determine which theories were supported and which were speculation. This process would eventually lead to breakthroughs in the identities of the unidentified victims. But before those breakthroughs came years of silence. And silence can make a cold case appear dead. The Texas killing fields was never dead. Every unidentified victim represented an unfinished investigation. Every family still searching represented a reason to continue. Every piece of evidence represented a possibility. While the fields remained quiet, the questions continued to grow. Who had taken Laura Miller? Who had killed Heidi Fye? Who was the woman buried beside Laura? Why had these victims been left in the same remote landscape? And if the crimes were connected, how many other victims might still be waiting for their names to be spoken? In 1986, investigators did not have answers. They had a field, 2 bodies, one identified teenager, one unidentified woman, and a growing realization that the darkness around Calder Road was deeper than anyone had imagined. The next discovery would make that realization even harder. For investigators working the Calder Road cases, the discovery of the second woman beside Laura Miller created a problem that was almost as painful as the murder itself. They knew another person had died. They knew her remains had been abandoned in the same remote landscape, but they did not know her name. She became Jane Doe. That name appeared in reports, evidence records, and investigative conversations, but it could never describe the person she had actually been. Before she became unidentified remains, she had been someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone who had a job, a home, memories, habits, and plans. Somewhere beyond the fields, there could have been people who had spent years wondering why she had disappeared. The investigators could only begin with what the remains could tell them. The woman had been found on February 2nd, 1986, near the remains of Laura Miller. The location immediately demanded attention. 2 women had been discovered in the same general area. One had been identified as a 16-year-old who had vanished in 1984. The other had no identity at all. That combination made the case more disturbing. If the 2 women had simply been discovered separately, investigators might have considered many explanations, but their proximity suggested that the location itself could have been significant. Someone might have known the area. Someone might have deliberately chosen it. Or the similarities could have been coincidence. At that stage, nobody could know. The unidentified woman became a mystery within the larger mystery. Investigators examined available records and missing person reports. They considered whether she could have been one of the many women reported missing across Texas. They compared physical characteristics and searched for information that might connect her to a particular family. Dental records, personal belongings, clothing, and other details could potentially provide a clue. But none of those methods immediately produced an answer. Years passed. The woman remained Jane Doe. Meanwhile, the name Texas killing fields became increasingly associated with the broader region surrounding Interstate 45. The corridor between Houston and Galveston had experienced numerous disappearances and murders, and the public began to wonder whether a serial predator was moving through the area. The theory was terrifying because the geography made it plausible. Interstate 45 connected large communities, but roads also led into isolated stretches of land. A person could leave a busy highway and reach an empty area within minutes. At the time, many of these places had little development and few reasons for ordinary people to visit them. There were no modern networks of cameras watching roads continuously. A vehicle could disappear down a side road without leaving an obvious record. For someone attempting to conceal a crime, isolation could be an advantage. For someone searching for a missing person, it could be a nightmare. Search teams had to cover enormous areas. They had to examine fields, wooded sections, drainage areas, abandoned properties, and locations that could change dramatically with weather and development. Every search carried the possibility of finding something. Every empty search created another day of uncertainty. For the families, that uncertainty could last for years. Laura Miller's family had already experienced the worst possible discovery. Now another family, somewhere in Texas or perhaps somewhere beyond the state, could still be waiting for a missing woman to come home. The unidentified victim became a symbol of that silence. Her name was unknown. Her family was unknown. Her story was unknown. And without her identity, investigators could not reconstruct the final chapter of her life. They could not ask her relatives who she had been dating. They could not ask co-workers when they had last seen her. They could not examine the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. They could not determine whether she had known Laura Miller, Heidi Fye, or anyone else connected to the growing investigation. The investigation was trapped behind a locked door. The key was her identity. In the years that followed, investigators continued examining the cases. The passage of time did not eliminate the possibility of solving them, but it made every step harder. People moved. Memories faded. Records disappeared. Witnesses died. Places changed. Yet evidence could survive. Bones could survive. DNA could survive. That possibility would become extremely important decades later. During the 1980s, DNA technology was still in its early stages. The modern concept of using genetic material to identify unknown victims was nowhere near as powerful as it would become. Investigators relied heavily on traditional forensic methods. That meant dental records could be crucial. If an unidentified victim had received distinctive dental treatment, investigators could compare those records with information from missing people. But that required investigators to know where to look. If no family reported someone missing, or if a missing person report existed in another jurisdiction, the connection could remain invisible. The unidentified woman might have been reported missing under another name. She might have been living far from League City. She might have been using a different surname. She might have been someone whose family had never understood what happened to her. This was the brutal reality of unidentified remains. The police could possess the body without possessing the story. And without the story, a homicide investigation could stall. For years, the woman beside Laura remained a blank space in the case. Then came another discovery. In 1991, 5 years after Laura and Jane Doe were found, another woman was discovered in the Calder Road area. The discovery was made by people riding horses through the area. They saw something that did not belong in the landscape and alerted authorities. Investigators arrived and found another body. Once again, the same questions returned. Who was she? How did she die? Who brought her there? Why Calder Road? The victim was initially unidentified. She became known as Janet Doe. The pattern now seemed impossible to ignore. 4 women had been found in the same general area over a period of years. Heidi Fye, Laura Miller, Jane Doe, Janet Doe. 2 had names. 2 did not. The landscape had become a graveyard. Yet investigators still could not say with certainty that one killer was responsible for all 4 deaths. That uncertainty would become one of the defining features of the case. The public wanted a single explanation, a single monster, a single name that could be placed at the center of the mystery. But real investigations rarely provide such neat answers. A homicide detective must distinguish between what seems connected and what can actually be proven. Similar locations can indicate a pattern, but they can also reflect geography. A killer may choose a place because it is isolated. Another killer may independently discover the same advantage. A victim may be transported there from somewhere else entirely. Without evidence, theories remain theories. Still, the 4 women shared something undeniable. Their stories had ended in the same landscape, and their families had been left with the same question. Why? The answer would not come quickly. For much of the 1990s and 2000s, the Calder Road cases remained surrounded by uncertainty. Investigators pursued leads, examined suspects, and attempted to understand whether the victims were connected. The cases attracted attention from local authorities, state investigators, and eventually federal agencies. The phrase Texas killing fields became nationally recognizable. But behind the frightening name were individual cases that could not be reduced to one headline. Heidi had disappeared in 1983. Laura had disappeared in 1984. The unidentified woman had remained without a name since 1986. The 4th victim had been discovered in 1991. Their cases were separated by years, yet the same piece of land connected them. Then forensic science began to change. Technology that had not existed when the women disappeared became increasingly powerful. DNA could provide information from evidence that investigators decades earlier might have considered nearly useless. Modern databases could connect evidence across jurisdictions. Investigators could revisit old cases with new tools. And one of the most important developments was genetic genealogy. Instead of searching only for a direct DNA match, investigators could sometimes identify relatives of an unknown person and work backward through family trees. The process could transform an unidentified body into a person with a name. For Jane Doe, that possibility would eventually become reality. But in the years before that breakthrough, she remained nameless. Her case file continued to exist. Her remains continued to represent a life that had been interrupted. And somewhere, perhaps, a family continued wondering what had happened to someone they loved. The investigators had spent years staring at the same unanswered question. Who was she? In 2019, more than 3 decades after her remains were found, the silence finally began to break. Modern genetic analysis provided investigators with a path that traditional methods had failed to open. The woman known for decades only as Jane Doe was finally identified. Her name was Audrey Lee Cook. For investigators, it was a breakthrough. For her family, it was something much more complicated. After more than 30 years, they finally knew where Audrey was. But they also learned how she had died. A name had been restored to the dead, yet a murder remained unsolved. And the moment Audrey Cook received her identity, another question became impossible to avoid. If investigators could finally discover who Jane Doe had been, could they also discover who had put her in the fields? That question would lead the investigation into a new era, one where technology could uncover secrets that time had failed to erase. But first, investigators would have to uncover the story of the woman who had spent decades without a name. Pendant plus de 30 ans, la femme retrouvée près de Calder Road avait vécu dans les dossiers de la police sous un nom qui n'était pas le sien. Jane Doe, 2 mots simples, presque froids, utilisés lorsqu'une personne morte ne peut pas être identifiée. Mais derrière cette appellation se cachait une véritable existence. Cette femme avait eu une enfance, des proches, des habitudes, des souvenirs et probablement des projets. Pourtant, lorsqu'elle fut découverte en 1986, tout ce que les enquêteurs pouvaient lui donner était un numéro de dossier et un nom provisoire. Son identité allait rester inconnue pendant des décennies. Le temps passait, mais l'affaire ne disparaissait pas. Le corps retrouvé près de Laura Miller continuait de représenter une question sans réponse. Qui était cette femme? D'où venait-elle? Quand avait-elle disparu? Qui l'avait connue avant sa mort? Et surtout, pourquoi son corps avait-il été abandonné précisément dans cette zone isolée? Les enquêteurs avaient tenté d'utiliser les méthodes disponibles à l'époque. Ils avaient étudié les restes, les caractéristiques physiques, les éléments retrouvés sur les lieux et les dossiers de personnes disparues. Ils avaient essayé de faire correspondre cette victime avec des femmes dont les familles avaient signalé la disparition. Mais aucune correspondance certaine ne permettait de lui rendre son identité. Le problème était immense. Une personne pouvait disparaître sans que son absence soit immédiatement signalée. Elle pouvait avoir quitté une ville, changer de nom ou vivre dans une autre région. Les dossiers de personnes disparues n'étaient pas toujours centralisés. Les informations pouvaient rester enfermées dans des archives locales, parfois à des centaines de kilomètres du lieu où les restes avaient été retrouvés. À cette époque, la technologie ne permettait pas encore de résoudre facilement ce genre de mystère. Puis la science a changé. L'analyse ADN est devenue progressivement plus précise. Les techniques médico-légales ont permis d'extraire des informations à partir de restes humains anciens. Les enquêteurs ont commencé à comprendre que les ossements pouvaient conserver une trace biologique suffisamment précieuse pour permettre une identification longtemps après la mort. Mais même lorsqu'un profil génétique pouvait être obtenu, il fallait encore trouver une correspondance. Un ADN inconnu n'est pas automatiquement un nom. Il faut une base de comparaison. Il faut une personne connue, un membre de la famille, un dossier médical ou une autre source permettant de relier ce profil à une identité réelle. Pendant longtemps, Jane Doe n'avait aucune de ces connexions. Puis une nouvelle méthode a commencé à transformer les enquêtes criminelles aux États-Unis. La généalogie génétique permettait aux enquêteurs de rechercher des correspondances familiales plus éloignées. Au lieu de demander uniquement si l'ADN appartenait à une personne déjà connue, les chercheurs pouvaient parfois identifier des parents biologiques éloignés et reconstruire progressivement un arbre familial. Pour les victimes non identifiées, Cette méthode représentait une révolution. Une personne pouvait être morte depuis plusieurs décennies et pourtant laisser derrière elle une trace génétique dans une famille. Un cousin éloigné pouvait devenir la clé. Une branche familiale oubliée pouvait conduire jusqu'à un nom. Et un nom pouvait enfin conduire jusqu'à une histoire. C'est ainsi que l'enquête sur Jane Doe a fini par franchir une barrière qui semblait autrefois infranchissable. Les chercheurs ont pu établir une connexion génétique permettant de remonter vers la famille de la victime. La femme sans nom avait enfin une identité. Elle s'appelait Audrey Lee Cook. Cette révélation, annoncée en 2019, fut un moment majeur dans l'histoire des Texas Killing Fields. Pendant plus de 30 ans, les enquêteurs avaient su qu'une femme était morte dans cette zone. Désormais, ils pouvaient enfin parler d'elle comme d'une personne réelle. Audrey Cook n'était plus Jane Doe. Elle avait un nom. Elle avait une histoire. Elle avait une famille. Selon les informations établies par les enquêteurs, Audrey était née en 1955 et avait vécu dans différentes régions du Texas. Elle avait travaillé et mené une existence qui, en apparence, n'avait rien de particulier à voir avec les autres victimes découvertes près de Calder Road. Et pourtant, sa vie s'était terminée au même endroit. La découverte de son identité changeait profondément la perspective de l'enquête. Les policiers pouvaient désormais rechercher ses connaissances, ses lieux de résidence, ses emplois et les personnes qu'elle avait fréquentées avant sa disparition. Ils pouvaient établir une chronologie plus précise de ses derniers jours. Surtout, ils pouvaient enfin déterminer quand elle avait probablement disparu. Cela pouvait permettre de rechercher des témoins qui, à l'époque, n'avaient jamais compris que ce qu'ils avaient vu pouvait être lié à un homicide. Mais une nouvelle difficulté apparaissait. Identifier une victime ne signifie pas identifier son meurtrier. Le mystère venait seulement de changer de forme. Pendant des décennies, la question avait été « Qui était Jane Doe ?» Désormais, la question devenait « Qui a tué Audrey Cook ?» Cette différence était essentielle. Les enquêteurs possédaient maintenant davantage d'informations sur la victime, mais ils devaient encore reconstruire les circonstances de sa mort. Ils devaient revenir dans le passé. Ils devaient regarder les années précédant 1986. Ils devaient rechercher les personnes qui avaient croisé Audrey. Ils devaient comprendre ses déplacements. Ils devaient examiner les endroits où elle avait vécu. Et surtout, ils devaient déterminer si quelqu'un avait déjà attiré l'attention des enquêteurs sans que son importance soit comprise à l'époque. Pendant ce temps, un autre dossier restait ouvert. Celui de la 4e femme retrouvée près de Calder Road. En septembre 1991, des personnes qui se déplaçaient à cheval dans la région avaient découvert un corps. La découverte avait immédiatement rappelé les précédentes victimes. Une autre femme venait d'être retrouvée dans cette même zone. Elle n'avait pas de nom. Les enquêteurs lui donnèrent une nouvelle identité provisoire, Janet Doe. Une fois encore, le même cauchemar recommençait. Un corps. Une zone isolée. Une femme inconnue. Une famille potentiellement incapable de comprendre ce qui était arrivé à l'une des leurs. Mais cette fois, les enquêteurs avaient déjà une histoire derrière eux. Ils savaient que Calder Road avait déjà été associé à plusieurs victimes. Ils savaient que l'endroit n'était plus un simple lieu de découverte. Il était devenu un élément central d'une série de questions criminelles. Le fait qu'un autre corps soit découvert en 1991 rendait le problème encore plus difficile à ignorer. 4 femmes étaient désormais associées au secteur. Heidi Fye, Laura Miller, Audrey Cook et Janet Doe. Les 4 affaires avaient des circonstances différentes, mais elles partageaient un même paysage. La tentation était forte de considérer ces meurtres comme les œuvres d'un seul criminel. Le public voulait comprendre le phénomène à travers une seule histoire. Un prédateur, une méthode, une motivation, un lieu choisi intentionnellement. Mais les enquêteurs devaient rester prudents. La proximité géographique ne suffisait pas. Il fallait des preuves. Il fallait établir un lien entre les victimes, les scènes, les blessures, les déplacements, les suspects et les éléments matériels. Sans ce lien, une théorie pouvait devenir une légende. Et les Texas Killing Fields allaient justement devenir l'une des affaires les plus entourées de légendes criminelles aux États-Unis. Le nom lui-même semblait raconter une histoire. Deschamps. Un tueur invisible. Mais la réalité était plus complexe. Certaines affaires de personnes disparues dans le corridor de l'Interstate 45 pouvaient être liées entre elles. D'autres pouvaient avoir des origines complètement différentes. Certaines victimes pouvaient avoir été tuées par des personnes différentes. Rien ne permettait de transformer automatiquement toutes les disparitions de la région en une seule série de meurtres. Cette distinction était essentielle pour éviter de transformer la douleur des familles en simple récit sensationnel. car derrière chaque dossier se trouvait une personne. Laura avait 16 ans. Heidi avait 25 ans. Audrey avait 30 ans lorsqu'elle a été tuée. Donna Prudhomme avait 34 ans. Leurs âges étaient différents. Leur vie était différente. Leurs histoires personnelles étaient différentes. Mais toutes avaient perdu leur avenir. Et leur famille avait perdu la possibilité de comprendre immédiatement pourquoi. Lorsqu'Audrey Cook fut enfin identifiée en 2019, son histoire montrait à quel point une enquête pouvait survivre au passage du temps. Le dossier avait traversé plusieurs générations de policiers. Des enquêteurs qui avaient travaillé sur l'affaire dans les années 1980 n'étaient plus nécessairement en service lorsque son identité fut retrouvée. Les techniques utilisées en 2019 n'existaient pas lorsque son corps avait été découvert. Les outils avaient changé. Les personnes avaient changé. Mais les preuves avaient attendu. C'est peut-être l'un des aspects les plus fascinants de cette affaire. Le passé n'était pas réellement mort. Il était seulement inaccessible. Chaque progrès scientifique pouvait ouvrir une porte. Chaque nouvelle base de données pouvait fournir une comparaison. Chaque nouvelle génération d'enquêteurs pouvait regarder les mêmes éléments avec des connaissances différentes. Et lorsque le nom d'Audrey Cook fut finalement retrouvé, une autre partie de l'histoire commença. Les enquêteurs pouvaient désormais chercher une vie plutôt qu'un corps. Ils pouvaient chercher des relations plutôt qu'un simple profil physique. Ils pouvaient demander aux proches qui Audrey avait fréquenté, où elle travaillait, où elle allait et quelles personnes avaient été présentes dans son existence avant sa disparition. Chaque réponse pouvait potentiellement rapprocher l'enquêteur du moment où sa vie s'était arrêtée. Mais il restait une question plus difficile. Quelqu'un savait-il ce qui était arrivé à Audrey? Quelqu'un avait-il vu quelque chose? Quelqu'un avait-il gardé le silence? Ou le responsable était-il déjà mort, disparu ou hors de portée de la justice? En 2019, les enquêteurs avaient obtenu une victoire importante, mais pas la conclusion. Jane Doe avait retrouvé son nom. La femme qui avait été oubliée dans les archives était redevenue Audrey Lee Cook. Mais dans les Texas Killing Fields, retrouver un nom ne signifie pas retrouver la vérité. Cela signifie seulement que l'histoire peut enfin recommencer. Et cette fois, les enquêteurs savaient exactement qui ils cherchaient à protéger. Ils cherchaient la mémoire d'Audrey Cook. Ils cherchaient la vérité sur Laura Miller. Ils cherchaient des réponses pour Heidi Fee et Donna Prudhomme. Et quelque part dans les dossiers, les anciens noms de suspects et de témoins attendaient encore d'être réexaminés. Le champ n'avait rien oublié. La science non plus. Il ne restait plus qu'à savoir si, après toutes ces années, quelqu'un allait enfin parler.